What made growing up in the 70s so special? That's what we're about to find out,
Yeah, I was
Sam.
about to say that's what we're about to learn.
Well, you just said to me in another video, you were like, well, I feel like I should have been growing up in the 70s. So
Yeah.
now you're going to see why.
Yeah, that was a video from 1973. So
Yeah, so that was the early 70s. Maybe your feelings will change when we get into the later portions of the 70s.
maybe.
But I think our viewers tuning into this one will probably agree with the 70s being an era that defined some greatness, that's for sure. And I do feel the same way sometimes, Sam, that I grew up in the wrong era, but we might be a little biased because on our channel, we tend to go back into the decades and relive some great experiences. But we're about to find out a little bit more about the 70s on this one, I believe. If you got other recommendations for videos or insights on this video, make sure you drop it a comment down below and let us know. We love reading your comments. All right, Sam, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's
Nothing
do it.
else you want to add?
I don't think so. Ready to go.
All right.
Wheelie.
That looks like fun.
If you grew up in the 1970s, chances are you had a very different kind of childhood from what kids have today. In the days before helicopter parents, playdates, and participation trophies, there was a generation of kids who grew up with less supervision and more self-reliance. While our parents contended with gas lines, political turmoil,
Well, I'm not a crook.
and economic crises, we were riding our bikes with our friends, often miles away from home. We roamed the streets until dark, returning to homes filled with lead paint and secondhand smoke. Over the course of a 1970s childhood, we were going to make some questionable choices, take some risks, get scraped, scratched, and sunburnt, leaving us with both scars and memories we'd carry for a lifetime. Please join me for a return to the days when Tonka trucks were made out of metal and Lego sets didn't require instructions, only imagination. Please join me as we take an authentic look back to see what growing up was really like for kids in the 1970s.
So cute.
Safety first.
Kids today are harnessed into booster seats until they're 10 years old and are expected to put on helmets before they get on a tricycle. Let's just say that the generation of parents who raised us were a little less safety conscious. To start with, most of us came home from the hospital wrapped up in a blanket on mom's unbuckled lap. As soon as we learned to crawl, we'd be climbing back and forth over the seats and making ourselves comfortable wherever we felt like. Instead of drop-down video screens and iPads, we amused ourselves with the radio buttons,
Look at that
window
radio.
cranks, and ashtrays, learning the hard way that the cigarette lighter can still be very hot even if it isn't still glowing red. If your family had a station wagon, sitting in the cargo area was like riding around in a playroom on wheels. Although our family's Caprice estate didn't have the rear-facing third-row seat, it did have a power rear window, which my mom was happy to roll down if we asked. We then proceed to hang out the back, making faces at the cars behind us as we inhaled the leaded fumes drafting back up from the exhaust. If your family didn't have a station wagon, you could always stretch out and relax on the back window deck, watching the telephone wires rise and fall against the sky as they sailed past those endless miles of wooden utility poles. While it would be considered outrageous today, on long car trips, it was the perfect place for a kid to take a nap. Us 70s kids
The autonomy. People just doing whatever they want. No cares in the world.
Well, it's just funny.
Free bird, free spirit.
Yeah, really. And it's also just funny to think about the whole car thing because, obviously in today's day and age, it's like if you don't have your seatbelt on, it's like the car's beeping at you, yelling at you,
Yeah.
all the craziness.
Yeah, it's just, you don't think about these things, and then we're getting some imagery and looking back and how different the cars were. And like they said, the station wagon. I mean, I remember seeing pictures of everybody having that, and you just forget, like, that's the way life was, right? But I'm sure for a lot of our viewers, it's like ingrained in their memory. That's the way they grew up, right?
Yeah, and I feel like we've heard a lot about the rear-facing seat in the station wagons. Like, I feel like that's like a nostalgic memory for people who grew up in this era.
nap. Us 70s kids learned at a young age to value our freedom. We dreamt of the day we could finally drive a car, with most of us lining up to take our road test the day we turned 16. Until that day, we contented ourselves by playing with any toy we could find that had wheels on it, and there were plenty of options. Family trips to Kmart sometimes led to a treasured new Matchbox or Hot Wheels car that we could race across the kitchen floor or through loops and jumps on those orange segmented tracks.
I did that.
You might have parked your cars in the Fisher-Price parking garage, the one with the crank-up elevator and the loud bell, or maybe rolled them down the ramps to the multi-level Hot Wheels service center. There were SSP racers, which you'd power by yanking a plastic zipper cord to get the metal flywheel spinning as fast as possible before letting it loose down the sidewalk.
Oh my gosh.
This was the same way you powered smashed-up derby cars, which were also from SSP. The Evel Knievel stunt bike was powered by a hand crank built into the launch ramp.
Oh
and
my
the bendy
gosh.
little Evel Knievel action figure always managed to hang on and stay upright no matter what the terrain. We had electric
awesome.
train sets, slot car tracks, Tonka trucks for the sandbox, speed burners that we'd race across the kitchen floor, and penny racers. And the girls weren't left out. Not only did your sister's Barbie drive a Corvette, she had an RV and dune buggy to boot. But even better than the toy cars were the ones you could ride. Thanks to our favorite role model, Evel Knievel, the life plan of every little boy growing up in the 1970s was as follows. 1. Get a bike. Preferably a Schwinn Stingray, and if possible, the top-of-the-line crate model with front and rear suspension, disc brakes, and a 5-gear stick shift on the crossbar. 2. Learn how to ride said bike without training wheels. And finally, 3. Become the hero of your neighborhood by jumping your bike over a record number of garbage cans,
Oh my gosh.
other kids, or maybe just a big stack of flaming cardboard boxes.
Evel Knievel.
Of course, even Evel had to start somewhere, and so did we. You may remember rolling yourself in circles between the hand-operated wheels of a crazy car, or steering into impressive spinouts, gripping the steering levers of a green machine.
Oh my gosh.
There were pedal tractors, pedal cars,
Wow.
and those janky homemade go-karts we hammered together with scrap wood and old lawnmower wheels. But for many 70s kids, myself included, our first taste of real self-propelled freedom was found behind the bright yellow handlebars of the original Marx Big Wheel. Our big wheels ran on pedal power, fueled by imagination. And thanks to all the cop shows we watched, our imaginations had plenty of scenarios to work
Oh
with.
my gosh. So cute.
And of course, if you were big wheeling with a buddy, you just needed to decide who was going to be Ponch and who was going to be John. Introduced in 1969 and made in Pennsylvania, the Marx Big Wheel reigned as the king of America's sidewalks from the early
Squad.
1970s through the mid-1980s. And while a version of the Big Wheel is still available today, it's just not quite the same as it was in the 1970s. With so many families,
There was clearly some pretty epic toys back then, huh?
I know some of those. I'm like, I'm jealous. I wish I had some of those.
Right? I mean, it's also cool to see how much influence automotives had, right? Playing with cars, riding cars, obviously the bikes, and, Evel Knievel was using a motorcycle. And maybe we should do something on Evel Knievel on the channel as well. If you guys are interested in that, let us know in the comments section. But really, I think it's cool to see the toys as well. They're promoting activity for kids, right? Pedal power, right?
Yeah.
You got nothing other than your legs getting you going anywhere. So, it keeps the kids active and gets them outside. And, I remember even, when I was growing up, we were starting to get some of the tech innovation, and, phones really hadn't become a thing yet, but the internet was starting to come about. But even me, like every time I come home from school, I'm out playing hockey,
Yeah.
right? Road hockey
Get your
every
bike
single
out
day.
and be riding
yeah.
your bike around everywhere.
Racing around the block. But I feel like kids today, they don't have that. And, you really start to see, the community and the, outdoors come into play in
Sure.
these toys here that
I was
were,
like laughing when they were all in their big wheels and all like squatted up, like, yeah, big wheels crew.
yeah.
But it's also interesting because I can see how some of these influence some of the toys that some of the toys that were available when I was a kid, like a couple decades later, right? So you can see where it started from, and then
Well, you see how long they lasted for, right? Because we're talking about the 70s here. And
Yep.
obviously, you grew up in the 90s,
Mhm.
right? So, you see how long, like decades, some of these toys were around for
for
right?
sure.
Was in the 1970s. With so many families moving out of the cities and into the new suburbs that were sprouting up far outside of the metro areas, many of us found ourselves living in neighborhoods right on the edge of large tracts of land that were still undeveloped. Eventually, all of these spaces would be turned into new subdivisions or future roads. But until that happened, us kids just referred to these areas as the woods. Depending on where you lived, your woods might be hiding old rail lines, rock quarries, or even long abandoned houses. Some of these areas had been untouched for decades, so you never knew what you might discover out there. You could be out in the woods hunting the ponds for turtles and tadpoles and come across old tires, ancient washing machines, old car parts, and sometimes even old cars.
Wow.
Of course, thanks to the new houses that were being built everywhere, there was always a ready supply of scrap wood that we scavenged to build hideouts and tree forts back inside. Over time, these little shacks would come to house small stashes of mismatched beer cans, near empty packs of cigarettes, and various weather-worn issues of a popular magazine published by the late Hugh Hefner. You could be out exploring the woods all day, getting into all sorts of potential trouble, but as long as you made it home by dark, your parents never seemed too concerned about what you'd been doing, or even inquire much as to where you had been.
Neighborhood.
All of your first friendships started with the other kids in your neighborhood, and while these may not have been the same kids you'd hang around with at school, your neighborhood friends were just a doorbell away. That's all that mattered when you were putting together a game of street hockey or backyard baseball. By the way, does anyone else remember what you did when you saw a moving van getting unloaded into one of the houses on your street? You and your friends would just walk right over, ring the doorbell, and ask whoever answered if there were any kids inside who wanted to come out and play. The thing is, neighborhoods were just more neighborly in the 1970s.
I could see that.
And as a neighborhood kid, you were pretty much welcome to run around and play wherever you wanted, as long as you weren't causing any trouble. Back then, we were taught to be responsible for our own actions. If you got hurt doing something stupid on someone else's property, your parents weren't going to go sue the property owner. They'd just patch you up and tell you to be more careful next time. Back in the days before
Learned a
social
lesson.
media made everybody antisocial, people just seemed to get along better with each other, and they actually knew a lot of their neighbors. I remember one summer when one of our neighbors got a permit from the city to shut down the street for a block party. That day, families up and down the block hauled their picnic tables, folding chairs, charcoal grills, and coolers out into the street. While the adults drank beer and socialized with each other, us kids took advantage of the chance to ride our bikes, big wheels, or roller skates down the middle of the closed-off street.
Gosh, I love it.
While words can often fall short of expressing what something truly felt like, great music can sometimes help fill in the blanks. And in the 70s, we had
I think it's just, that's something I really notice is the community aspect that they were just highlighting right there, being neighborly. And, I don't see that ever happen anymore where you have like a new person moves in on the street and, the kid's first instinct is to go and see if there's another kid there
Yeah.
and invite them out to play. Like, I can't even imagine that happening in
No.
2026.
No, definitely
And
not.
just even those visuals there, it did remind me a lot of like my parents with their family. They had a lot of get-togethers, every year during the summer. They have a pig roast with everybody from the family, but even that neighborly essence that they're channeling in this video, I feel like that was more of a decade thing, and just like, let's all get together and just hang out. That's what we're going to do. And that I don't think happens nearly as much anymore.
No, it was funny because I feel like he, made a joke, but he's true that it's almost like with the rise of technology and the internet, that's gone away. Like even obviously we were talking before a little bit later, but I remember growing up and, I moved on to a new street and that exact thing happened to me. All the neighborhood kids were outside and they all came over and they're like, "Hey, what's your name? Come play." And that's how I ended up meeting like one of my best friends at the time. And then also like we used to do big street-wide like gatherings, and at our family cottage, we used to do like a big pig roast as well. So it's like all that stuff used to happen, right? And that was even like in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and
So,
again, you were growing up when there was a little bit of tech, but not the
mhm,
social media stuff
exactly.
yet, right?
Like, great music can sometimes help fill in the blanks. And in the 70s, we had some of the best music of all time. To really get a sense of what it was like to be young in the 70s, keep watching. And if this helps bring back any good memories, please let me know in the comments.
Touch or tackle.
Don't you feel it growing day by day? People getting ready for the move. Some are happy, some are sad. Oh, we gotta let the music play. What the people need is a way to make them smile. It ain't so hard to do if you know how. Gotta get a message, get it on through. Know that mama got you happy wild. Whoa, whoa, listen to the music. Whoa, whoa, listen to the music. Whoa, whoa, listen to the music all the time.
Old lawn chairs.
Well, I know you know better. Everything I say. Meet me in the country for a day. We'll be happy and we'll dance slow. We're gonna dance the blues away. If I'm feeling good to you and you're feeling good to me, there ain't nothing we can do or say. Feeling good, feeling fine. Oh, baby, let the music play. Oh, listen to the music. Oh, listen to the music. Oh, listen to the music all the time. Like a lazy flowing river, surrounding castles in the sky, and the cloud is growing bigger.
On the playground.
For the happy sounds, got to let it fly. Listen to the music. Listen to the music.
If you enjoyed this video, I bet you'll like this next one as well. Just click to watch.
Obviously, guys, you had there was some music there at the end. If it's in the video, that means I didn't cut it out. And if it's out, it's because of the copyright related stuff that tends to happen sometimes with music related content. So apologies if that's the case. But there was some images there, and definitely reminded me of my parents' upbringing, some of my upbringing as well. But the thing that was cool to me, I was thinking about it, and we grew up in Canada, and obviously this is an American video. You saw some, Texan flags and American flags in there. And it's cool how it was so similar, right? My parents' upbringing, our upbringing, and what was going on in the States at the time. It was very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
And, it kind of shows, why it's been so weird having the state that we're in right now, where Canada and America aren't on the
Are at
same
odds.
wavelength as much. But
Yeah.
it's for so long. It's just like it was always looked upon as that way, right? Like we're the same. We
Like
do
very
the same thing
similar.
with our kids. We do the same thing as
Yeah.
neighbors and family, and
Yeah.
it's just it was cool though to reflect and see how far things have come, and where things used to be, and get nostalgic about some of those things that are missed.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about my parents a little bit too. And, I think something that stands out to me is the community side of things, but also just like the trust and the safety aspect of it. Like it was like nobody was really concerned if their kids were out and about because they knew they were with other neighborhood kids and they trusted those kids, or they were at these kids' parents, these kids were at another kid's parents' house and they trusted the parents of those children, right? Like things have changed so much. Like I remember being a kid and going to my grandparents' house, and they never locked the door. Like even when they went out, they did not lock their door. Whereas like now that's like unheard of,
Yeah.
right? And I see people who won't even let their kids have sleepovers because they don't trust their kids going to other people's houses, right? So it's just so crazy how far it's come. And at this point, it was people were more trusting, and it was deemed more safe because you knew your neighbors. You actually took the time to get to know them and like have those relationships.
Yeah, well, times has clearly changed, but we got to reminisce on some of the great stuff from the 70s. Let us know if any of this stuff brought back memories for you. And if they did, let us know what they
Yeah.
were. 'Cause we
Share
love-
your favorite 70s memories with us.
We love reading that kind of stuff. And we've gone back and experienced a lot of music and culture in this. We got to experience more on this one, but we're always interested in learning and experiencing other things. So if you have any recommendations for videos like this that we should check out, we always appreciate your insights. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.
Thanks for watching, guys.